Good day once again, folks. So let's continue now with this question paper, last year's Gauteng Prelim paper 2024. We're looking at the functions questions. So let's look at question 5 now. So question 5.1 says P is a point 2 square root of 3. And they say that that point is rotated 90 degrees in an anti-clockwise direction. They want you to give the coordinates of the new point, in other words, the image. Okay, so let me just draw a rough visual representation. 2 square root 3 would be somewhere here. This is 2, and square root 3 is somewhere between 1.5 and 2. So if this is 3 and so that's 2, your square root of 3 would be somewhere there. Okay, so this is my point 2 square root of 3. Now I'm going to draw an imaginary stem to that point, and we are rotating this 90 degrees anti-clockwise. So it means that my new point will be somewhere there. If it's rotated 90 degrees, this is P prime, my image. Okay, they want the coordinates. So as you can see, the X is no longer positive, okay, because it's on the negative side now. So this is -2, but my Y, the point is equally high. It hasn't gone up or down. So my Y is still square root of 3. Okay, so it means that this point will be -2 square root of 3. So what do we get out of this? If you rotate a point 90 degrees anti-clockwise, the X changes its sign and the Y stays the same. Go back and revise if you need to. This section is transformations. You did it as early as grade 9 or even 8 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so that's 2 easy marks for that one. Let's look at 5.2 now. The fun begins. They give you a sketch. And let me draw the graph. Okay. And this graph goes through Q on the y-axis. It cuts the y-axis at Q. And it goes through a point -1.5. Okay, -1.5. Right. And they say this is h, and h of x, the equation is h of x is a to the x. Right? So the fact that the variable, the x, is an exponent, we know that this is an exponential graph. Right? Now 5.2.1, let's create space here. Substantiate y, the coordinates of q, the y-intercept of h are 0, 1. They're telling you that the y-intercept is at 1. They want you to give a reason. Okay. What is special about q is that it's the y-intercept. And how do we find the y-intercept? Or what happens at the y-intercept? At the y-intercept, my x is equal to 0. Remember, when you're finding the y-intercept, you say let x equal to 0. So if this is my equation, in order to find the y-intercept, I'll say let x equal to 0. So let's go. Y is equal to a to the 0. And anything to the 0 is equal to 1. Okay. So that is why we know that the coordinates of q are 0 and 1. 2 easy marks there. 5.2.2. Calculate the value of a. Are they like these questions? We know that this is the equation. wants us to find A. How do we find A? Okay, I can't do anything to find A at the moment because I've got 3 unknowns. The Y is unknown and the X is unknown as well as the A. But if I can find a Y and an X, put them in here, then I can solve for A. So what are we going to put in the place of X and Y? Any points that the graph goes through. And they tell us in this case that the graph goes through -1.5. So let's substitute that point. Okay. So where I see a Y, I'm going to put a half. Where I see an X, I'll put a -1. And then we need to solve for A. There are various ways to do this. One of them could be to change this to a +1. So raise everything, both sides, to the power of -1. Okay, using law number 3 of exponents. If you multiply the exponents, sorry, if you have a power raised to another power, I wonder if you can see that because of the glare. Okay, let me write it slightly lower. Let's write it slightly lower. So can you see the substitute? No, you can't. Okay, so yes, subst -1.5. Okay, so it means that I'm going to have a half is equal to A to the -1, right? So as I was saying, changing this to a positive, I can do it by raising both sides to the -1. Let's continue it at the top here. So I'm going to have a half to the -1 is equal to A, right? And then how do I simplify this? It means that I have 1 to the -1 over 2 to the -1 is equal to A, making these exponents positive. This is simply equal to 2, because this must go up and this must go down, and the exponents become positive, and I will have my A is equal to 2, right? So what does that mean? It means that the equation of this thing, this is not what they're asking us for. Sorry, h of x is equal to 2 to the x, but this is where the answer ends, right? 5.2.3, write down the equation of the inverse of h in the form y is equal to something. Okay, let's squeeze that in here. 5.2.3. We know that h of x or y is equal to 2 to the x. How do we find the inverse? X and y swap. So I'm going to have an x here is equal to 2 to the y, right? I need to solve for y. It's an exponential equation. And we know that you need to get the bases to be the same. If the bases are the same, then we can say the exponents are equal. But there's no way you can write x with a base of 2. So that's where the logs come in. So we take the logs of both sides, right? And then the log law says I can bring the exponent down. So it's y log 2. Now I can solve for y by dividing both sides by log 2. So y is equal to log x over log 2. And this can simply be written as y is equal to log base 2 of x. And that is the answer to 5.2.3.